User Interface and User Experience Concept Part 2. In Part 1, we talked about where do UI and UX come from, what is usability, and what is user. In this lecture, we will talk about what user experience design is and user interface and user experience in general. In the last lecture, we talked about what user experience is, and that is making your product useful for the user, usable, and valuable for the user. For this, I need you to see only the left side of this circle, this part. See, user experience is a set of many other processes that finally lead to the user experience. And in these processes, some of them are user research, information architecture, interaction design, visual design, and usability evaluation. Again, I would like you to focus on the left side of the circle for now. User research is when you communicate with your user, when you study about your user in order to know what they want and what would make them feel better with your product. Information architecture is how you arrange all the information and all the content of your product in a layout that makes it better and for the user and they feel better about it. They're satisfied with it. Interaction design and visual design. These two parts include the user interface. Visual design is selecting the colors, the buttons, the highlights, the graphics. Interaction design is making your user interface basically. And usability evaluation is when you are done with all the designing, you evaluate if whether the product that you made is actually usable and if the user experience coming out of it is positive. Now I would like you to see the right side of this circle. See, when you are doing user research, you do that by certain theories and certain methods. The first thing you would need to know when you're doing user research is to know about user-centered design. User-centered design is how we can focus on the user and involve the user when we are designing. User stories is a method of making stories, real stories from the users that help us design and make the experience better for the user. Scenarios and personas are again two types of things we can do, which we will study in the later lectures, to evaluate about the user in form of user research. If you want to know about user experience design, that is in these two parts, the prototyping and the wireframing. Again, we will talk about this when we're on the user experience lectures, how these two things are a part of user design. So in the industry, you might have heard a lot about UI separately and UX separately. The truth is that UX and UI work together to form an experience. I want you to focus on this line and get it in. The web user experience is the abstract feeling people get from using a website. Abstract feeling as in if they're satisfied, is the website desirable for them, will they come again? The user interface is what people interact with as part of the experience. See, to get an experience from a website, people interact with the website, and this is how it's UX and UI, not UX versus UI. Typically for websites, a company's design team works on the UI in order to heighten the UX. Once the UX analysis is done, people design the UI on those principles to make it better for their users. Menu options, buttons, text, graphics, videos, and where each are placed on the page make up the interface and should all be meticulously planned. That planning is the user experience design. These are the components of UX and how their use directly affect how the user feels. To know the difference, user interface is what to make in order to achieve something, and user experience is what to achieve. User interface is designing the visual elements, where in user experience, it's about the experiences. So making the visual elements to deliver an experience. You make your interface desirable, you make your product desirable by making your user interface desirable, and by doing that, you make your product credible. User interface focuses on the tools, and user experiences focus on the interactions. In order to gain the interactions, you use the right tools, and you use the right tools to gain the right interactions. Once again, user experience has values such as valuable, being the product accessible, the product is desirable, credible, convenient, satisfiable, and useful. Whereas user interface is, the color scheme, the content, the buttons, the forms, images, layout, and typography. You design all of these to achieve the values right here to make the experience better for the user by your interface.